Here come the folks.
And the numbers are streaming.
Oh, really? Welcome, folks. We'll get started in just a moment.
Hank, is that a picture of your setup?
No.
Okay.
I figure it was timely.
Wow, this is beautiful.
All right, folks, I'm going to just kick us off here. We got folks still arriving into the Zoom. So first of all, I just want to thank everybody for joining us. This is another one of your Kings Mountain Association speaker series, town hall style meetings. So thanks very much to Joanne Howard, who organized this one for us. And she's going to introduce all of our panelists in just a moment, but I wanted to drop in the fun technical stuff. So this Zoom is a webinar versus a just regular Zoom meeting, which most of us are used to a regular Zoom meeting. So I just wanted to point out a couple of things. One is that as an attendee in a webinar, you don't get to use the chat section because there's instead a Q&A. So if you look down at the bottom of your screen, it's probably around about here. So if you have a question come up and you want to type it out of your system before we get to the actual question section at the end of tonight's webinar, then you can type a question into there and either we'll read the question out for you or we can turn you into a panelist at the time if you want to talk. So when we do get to the question and answer section at the end of the meeting and you want to speak your question, then you would let us know by raising your hand, and I'll go over that again at the end. The other thing that it's important for me to say is that this is your neighbors volunteering to share their experiences on the mountain with solar panels, but this is not KMA or your neighbors like supporting any particular vendor. We just are having a town hall and sharing information. And also you probably already noticed that we're recording this just so that we can share it with people who can't make it here tonight. I think that's all of our technical Zoom things. So 2 last reminders. One is that Halloween is coming up and we are doing Halloween. Hooray! So on Halloween, we're going to have an outdoor adventure. Oh, okay. So you do have a chat. That was a great help. Thank you for letting me know. You do have a chat, so you can chat with each other in there. But if you want to share a question directly to the panelists, then you'd use the Q&A. So yes, Halloween, we're going to do an outside Halloween. And folks, we encourage you to come in your costumes. There'll be some games as usual and prizes as usual for the kids. And I believe also some snacks, and we're also encouraging people to bring their pumpkins since it's the end of Halloween night, and you can stack them up on the wall and we will give you prizes for bringing your beautiful pumpkins. that's our Halloween plan. And then before then, on the 30th, which would be the Saturday before, we're having a training brought to us by Cleopatra Today. And she's from the San Mateo County Conservation District, and some of us have already had a visit from her to look for these invasive plants on your land, but she's going to show you how to identify the difference between the sedge and some other similar looking plants, and you can actually touch those examples she's going to bring, and she'll talk about how to get those things out. So that'll be on October 30th, weather permitting, at 10 a.m. outside of the community center. So keep your eyes on Groups.io for updates on either of those things. And with that, I'm going to, and you can also see more on that information over in your chat box. And I'm going to hand things over to Joanne.
Hi, I'm Joan Howard. I'm a member of the Kings Mountain Board, and I was just watching all of our neighbors ask each other about solar and realized that there was a wide interest in that. And so we went looking for those pioneers who've already figured it out. I'm going to ask each of our 4 panelists to introduce themselves, when they moved to Kings Mountain, where they are on Kings Mountain, when they started thinking about solar, and when they actually installed it. And then after you've met all 4 panelists, I'll come back and ask each of them to spend about 5 minutes on how they actually accomplished their challenging goal of getting their installation completed. So let me start with Ben.
Thank you. My name is Ben. I live in Kings Mountain. We're on Skyline and Swett, the condos that are there. We have the corner units with the panels on it. If you drive by, you might have seen that. And so yeah, we've had solar for I think almost a year. So we're about to hit a year. So I'll be happy to answer questions and talk about our experience and the process. It's been easy. The results are great, and I've been generally very happy with it. Yeah. Anything else you'd like me to cover, Joan?
That's fine for now. And Arturo and Jeanette?
Hello, neighbors. We are Arturo and Jeanette Alvarez-Buylla. We actually live off Harkins in Forest View Road. And we began thinking about solar soon after we came to the mountain almost 20 years ago. But we had a really bad roof that needed to be replaced, so it was never functionally to replace it. So we finally, 2 years ago, we put a metal roof, and it was time to put solar, and it was a great idea. We went through several companies, and we considered Tesla, we considered Solar City, and finally we ended up doing it with Enphase. And I have a force.
No, this is just a quick introduction.
Oh, this is just a quick introduction. Okay. So that's the introduction. Do you want to say anything else?
We moved here in 2000. That's the only piece that we forgot to say.
Okay, we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you. Thank you. Tom? Tom, you're still on mute.
At the bottom left. There you
Yeah,
go.
my wife just yelled
Got it.
downstairs to tell me. So anyway, so I'll repeat. So I first moved here in the end of 1967 and all of 68. And in the course of it, I got to know a lot of people. But I left for a time and came back in 73. And then in 77, I bought the land which I'm on now, which is at the Purisima Road, which is off Comstock. And then in 78, I built this house, and then that was when the first solar went on. So that's who I am. I think we get to describing our systems on a later step.
Okay, Tom, and we've lost, I think, your video as well. And Hank,
I can still see Tom.
How could that be?
oh, good.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, it's my video.
Hi, I'm Hank Stern. I've lived on the mountain here with Marlene for about, I think around 27 years. We did new construction on a newly built house, which was completed about 2 years ago. And we started the design and selection about 2 or 3 years prior to the house being done. So it was about 4 or 5 years ago that we started the installation. So it was, we started from the ground up. And we are just north of the country store.
Okay, we'll come back to you in a bit. So Ben, you want to tell us some more about how you did your project?
Yeah, definitely. So we moved here about 2 years ago. So I think less than some folks here by a factor of about 10. In the first winter, we had outages, then we had more outages in the summer. And this is the point where my wife and I decided that we wanted the solar to be self-sufficient, but more importantly, we wanted batteries. And so sort of the process of looking at various vendors, we evaluated Tesla, probably 4 or 5 other independents, Solar City, which I think is now part of Tesla, Sunrun, a couple others, and landed on an independent vendor out of Rockland. So over the course of the next year, we went through the permitting, the installation, and so on, and the system turned on in December of last year. So we've had it a little bit less than a year at this point. And the system is 6.2 kilowatt, and we have 2 batteries, Tesla Powerwalls, that are 13.5 kilowatt hour each. And I'm very happy overall. It covers anywhere between 70-80% of our usage in the winter and probably 120% in the summer or more, depending on if we use air conditioning. So overall, super pleased with it. It so happens that we had almost no power outages this summer, which I found a little disappointing. I was hoping to test the system and just sort of like get some of my money's worth. I'm sure it's going to happen over time. But so, yeah, I can't report too much on that other than, the app tells me we had about 10, 15 very small outages and we didn't notice a single time. In terms of my takeaways, I think is solar works, obviously. But the overall sort of results we got were in line with what the vendor promised. Everything was pretty smooth, honestly. No real problems with the installation, the permitting. The painful part was really trying to dig through the various offers on the market to understand who was the better solution. And I'm, not convinced we picked the right one. I had a great experience, but it may very well be that somebody else could have beat what we got, maybe cheaper price, maybe more power, maybe more something. I'm happy with the results, but I did find it difficult to compare the various offerings between the vendors. In terms of any other thoughts, I think the one thing I would point out, especially in Kings Mountain, is the trees. It was very difficult to do a proper shade analysis to understand as the sun changes course over the course of the year, what would actually happen to the power. And so we have a good 30-40% drop in the winter, and maybe even a bit more than that, because we haven't hit December again quite yet. And so if in the summer it produces, let's say 40-45 kilowatt hour through the day, in the winter we're down to probably 25-30. Today has been terrible, like 13 or something because of the fog. So I would just definitely keep that in mind if this is something you're considering. Look at the trees around your property and make sure that as the sun moves around, you don't have any surprises. We have a giant tree in my neighbor's property that he refuses to cut down. And starting about November through, I think, February, we lose quite a bit because of that. So I would just call that out. I think otherwise, very pleased with the results. I think the investment has been great. The batteries are awesome. Saves me money even without the solar itself, because we can switch to a rate plan. So generally very pleased with it. Yeah, that's all I had. Unless there are specific questions you'd like me to answer, which I'm happy to do.
Okay, we'll come back for that. Arturo and Jeanette.
We're going to share a screen so that people can see a little bit of pictures of what we had set up.
So when we came to the mountain, we were concerned about the same problem that Ben mentioned about the tree shades, and obviously panels have gotten a lot more efficient. And I think the numbers compare very well to what Ben had just described. This is technology that does work. As you'll see, there is still a lot of sun, even with the shade that we get from the neighbors' trees.
We can't see your
and
screen share just yet if you are wanting us to look at your visual.
yeah, I haven't shared it yet.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll share them in a second. So as I said before, we were concerned about having a bad roof that actually had leaks. And so we spent almost a year putting a new roof with the insulation, and then we put a metal roof. And you can see it. I'm going to share a very short presentation, just 4 slides, that shows you the system that we have put on. So can you see our screen?
Yep. Yeah, we see your calendar and your display panel.
You share, stop sharing, and then ask it just to share. When you share, ask it just to share the keynote. And then just the keynote.
Okay.
Perfect.
Can you see it?
Yeah, yes.
So that's one of the roof, and this is the face of the roof that's facing south, where we get most of the sun. We get the shades from the 2 chimneys. Do you see my pointer? And that actually shades a little bit this top panel in the morning and this top panel in the afternoon. And in the winter, we get a shade here from a tree. So we chose these panels that are 400 watts. I think they're one of the most efficient panels in the market, and we cover most of the side of the roof, leaving the spaces that the fire department needs to climb to the top of the roof. This is a back of one of these panels, and we chose to do a microinverter system. So each one of these panels has this little microinverter that converts the DC voltage coming from the panel into AC current directly. So each one of the panels is producing AC, and they get all wired together, and the wires come out here behind this chimney, and they go down to multiple boxes. So these microinverters, as you can see, mount directly on the panels. They're very, very easy to mount. And then we mounted the panels themselves directly onto the roof using these new and fantastic mounts called S5Ns. So you don't need racks or anything. The panels actually are mounted directly into the ribs of the roof. I put some extra mounts on the front because I was concerned about the wind load in the mountain when we get these storms. And we installed these this summer, and we got it working in September. And I'll show you the results of it. So the AC current coming from the panels, 124 volts, goes into multiple boxes. And that's shown in this slide. So first it comes to this box that you can barely see in the top, that actually is a combiner box that combines all of the currents from different panels, and then also has an interface to connect to the internet. So it's constantly recording how much current is coming through those panels. Then that gets wired down to this other big box called the M phase, and this is actually the brains of the whole system. As you'll see, it actually controls the flow of the current from multiple sources, and I'll show you how it does that in a second. And as Ben described, we put batteries because we hate generators, and the noise of the generators spoil our wonderful mountain, and it's really wonderful to have totally silent power when we have blackouts. So we installed we installed one big battery that's shown here on the right. That's actually 10.8 kilowatts hours. And then this is connected in series to another battery here that's on this side, that's 3.3. So in total, we have a storage of 13.3 or a little bit more.
Arturo?
Yeah.
We're still seeing your first slide, and we are not seeing your cursor. So I'm not sure if we're seeing the panels yet.
So you're not seeing the boxes?
No, we're still stuck on the first slide. Do you want to maybe share and unshare again? Ah,
There it
yeah,
is.
that's not what we were looking at.
Do you see it now?
Yes, and we can see your cursor this way. So maybe,
Yes.
maybe let's just do it this way if you don't mind.
Yeah, so just let me leave it this way. So this is the first box where the current comes from this ceiling. What?
You don't, we're out of time. So just go through, show.
And then it goes down to this combiner box, and then it goes to the batteries. These are the batteries. And we also put a new panel that's actually very nice because it separates, and I'll show you this next, it separates the essential loads in the house from the non-essential loads. So when there's a blackout, only the loads coming to this side of the panel get backed up. And this is one of the batteries opened up, so you can see that the battery also operates at 120 volts. So this is our microinverter, similar to those that are in the back of the panels, and convert the DC current from the batteries into AC current, and that goes out into that combiner box. And this all combines into the following. This is software from all of the system. These are the panels. You can read how much each individual panel is generating. And then this is the overall production and consumption for a cloudy day here. And this is for a sunny day. You can see this wonderful production. On a sunny day, we produce about twice as much as we consume. On a cloudy day, we're about even. And obviously, this is going to change as we go farther into the winter. And also, you can simultaneously see here on the right how the current is flowing. And that's what one of the boxes is doing, is moving the current from the panels into either the grid or into the house, or if the batteries are not charged, into the batteries. So this is the overall system, and seems to be working, and it seems to be the right thing to do, to be getting all this wonderful energy from the sun. Thank you so much.
I'll just add one other little consideration that we had that informed why we did it this way. And that was because when the electricity goes out, we wanted to make sure that the system could still charge the batteries, and that we would be able to use solar, we would be able to collect solar even when the entire grid was out.
It looks like Joanne's video isn't showing right now, so she's probably just getting, she's back. Thank you, Joan. Sorry, I keep mispronouncing your name. I apologize.
Okay. That's okay. Thank you, Arturo and Jeanette. And we'll come back with questions for you. And now let's turn to Tom.
We're describing our systems. So my system is, by what I just saw, an antique. When I built the house in '78, the panels I put up were hot water, and I built radiant heat into the floor of the house, and the hot water from the roof circulates through the floor. Later in 2004, I still had kept part of the roof, and anticipating that PV would be available for civilians and not just spacecraft, and put up 16 panels, PV panels, but they're antiques in that they're 125 watts each. And I'm seeing Arturo here with 400. My gosh, amazing. So I do have a battery backup, which is really comprised of aircraft batteries cabled together. There is an inverter. So as soon as the power goes off from PG&E, we, like you, have taken part of the house to support and not the whole house. And the batteries will go for about 2 days. They will benefit from the PV panels to get recharged, but after a while, if they run to a certain voltage, it will fire a generator. I know that's a dirty word around here, but it will recharge the batteries, so it'll keep going. But it's still a luxury system to my mind when the power goes off, and later you walk your dog and you look around the neighborhood and you think, gee, we've had a power outage, but you didn't even know it because you were watching the news or something. So any questions about that system?
We'll come back to you for questions after we hear from Hank.
Sure. When we originally were looking into installing solar, we were looking to install it in anticipation of winter outages. and we're debating whether we should have battery backup or generator backup. But given the amount of opportunities for a generator to fail at the wrong times, and the ease of changeover to batteries is almost seamless, and the low maintenance, that we decided to go to a battery system. We sized our solar so that in the wintertime, we could run our house in cloudy days, or when the storm cleared in a day or two, be able to recharge things, and design the battery backup on the worst case power outages that we had. So I think probably back in 97 or so, or 95, actually it was 95, we were out for 6 days, and there was another time we were out for 6 days. So we designed our battery backup at minimum load that could last that long, assuming at some point the sun would come out and we could start doing trickle charges in the wintertime. So it was really designed for the wintertime, but you know, as you all know, in the summertime we're getting more power outages from PG&E, and the lines have since been upgraded with better wires, so we've had less winter power outages. Our system is 45 panels. It generates 15 kilowatts in full power. Our battery backup system is about 85 kilowatt hours, so we can load shed. We wired up the system so that only the critical infrastructure is on there, so that if the power goes out, it doesn't power any air conditioner or anything else. So if we're not home, it doesn't drain the batteries. You know, we come home, 12 hours later, and it's used all the batteries for air conditioning. Since then, systems, I understand that Square D or somebody makes some switches so that you can program it, so you don't have to hardwire it necessarily for your load shedding or automatic load shedding, which seems pretty convenient. That wasn't available at the time. We used lead acid batteries because at the time the Tesla batteries wouldn't be powering the 240 volt variable speed drive pumps that we need for our well water system. I don't know if they can do it now, but they couldn't do it back then. And the cost for the lead acid batteries are about half per kilowatt than the Tesla at the time, so they're considerably cheaper. So we've been pretty happy with the system. It's been operating for 2 years. There's a fair amount of software that's built into the systems, and we've had certain failures of the inverters and some other things that we've had to get repaired. So one of lessons learned, it pays to pay attention to what's going out in your power grid and what you're generating on solar, because if you're not paying attention to that, something breaks down, you could be passing up on a lot of free power. Our system was installed by a company called American Solar in the North Bay, and so in general, we've been super happy with the system.
Thank you, Hank. So we have two very good questions that we'd like each of the panelists to answer, probably in the same order. They asked specifically from Benjamin which vendors they bought the equipment from, and who did they use for installation.
Yeah, definitely. I can start. Can I just address both questions together? Or should I address the first one and then go around and then the second one?
Both.
Okay. So I used a vendor out of Rockland, so far in the East Bay somewhere, I think, called Infinity Energy. I thought that they weren't the most reasonable, but the costs were generally pretty similar. And I was very happy. They are independent, and so they installed for me the Tesla batteries, but I got an off-brand solar panel, so not solar from Tesla specifically. It compared favorably overall in terms of production and cost to the actual system being installed by Tesla. And also Tesla was a bit of a pain to work with, honestly. They missed some appointments. They were very difficult to work with. So I do have the Tesla batteries, but the solar panels themselves are not Tesla. The second question, I think, is the cost and how long the batteries last. So the entire system we have, which is a fairly large solar system, plus 2 batteries, was about 50,000, which is not cheap, obviously. In terms of how long it lasts, it really will depend on how much solar power we get for obvious reasons. So if I were to get 0 solar whatsoever, and we use about as much power as we use on a normal day, it should last about 24 hours. In reality, when we have an outage, which I think only happened once, we don't use the AC, we would probably monitor our consumption quite a bit in such a way that we would consume less. In addition to that, we get anywhere from 15 kilowatt hour per day to 35, 40 on a good day in the summer. So effectively, it could last as long as I want, so long as we don't run the AC, and we're a little careful with the type of appliances that we use. Let me just make sure I've got right. So the other question was around, can you charge the batteries during lower costs with PG&E? And then use during the day. I don't, well, at least with the system I have, we cannot do that. And so the only way that the batteries charge is from solar. You can charge the batteries from the grid only when there is a storm coming and Tesla turns on this storm watch program that they have, in which case the battery goes up to full before a storm. So the batteries got up, I think a day or two ago, it happened. Maybe a couple of weeks ago, I think we had some wind, and the batteries just charged up to full. So we had solar and also the grid just powering the batteries when the event is triggered by Tesla, and then it sort of keeps it topped up basically until the storm watch has passed. But as far as I know, there's no way to have solar and a Tesla battery and charge the battery from the grid during low cost and then have it discharge. I think you may be able to do that if you just have the batteries but no solar. But I may be mistaken, so I would definitely verify that. I think this is all the questions that I saw.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Arturo and Jeanette, it may be that your system is not available in today's dollars, so I'm not sure if you're able to answer some of those questions in terms of costs. But maybe you can talk to the length of time that it works when there's an outage.
So we also looked at multiple vendors, and we actually looked very seriously into Tesla, and we actually went into contract with them, and then we have to break everything. We lost the deposit. As Ben mentioned, it was really a bad experience working with them. And then started comparing their systems and their batteries. We found this Enphase system. So we actually got the supplies from Enphase. And I wanted to do most of the work myself. So I worked with a contractor that was able to help me do the design and help me with some of the installation and also with the permitting and then with the overall software program. And so we did it over this summer, and it cost us about $35,000 the whole system, but we did a lot of the work ourselves. It's not that difficult to do. Mounting the panels, especially on a metal roof, is actually quite easy. The problem is that the panels are a bit heavy, and I got help for bringing the panels up. That's one of the questions. The other question is how long
do the batteries last?
Yeah, we haven't been able to test the batteries yet because, as Ben mentioned, now that we have solar, there's no more blackouts. But calculating the amounts of production that we have is very similar to Ben's numbers. I mean, we're producing about twice as much as we consume, and the batteries charge within 2 or 3 hours in the morning, even in a cloudy day. So I think at this rate, we could keep going with the batteries because they would be able to recharge. Now, we did separate the load. So we have, the main concern for us was the refrigerators. So we have the refrigerators backed up. We have the internet. That's another thing I wanted to consult with everyone in the morning. I find it pretty incredible that Comcast doesn't have a generator or a backup system for us. So we lose internet. So even if we have a backup for our house, I mean, we still do not have internet, which is pretty bad for communication.
So we don't know how long they'll back up the refrigerators even, right?
So I calculate based on the consumption that they would be able to go for like 2 days with the essential loads that we have. But we haven't even been able to test them. We're still waiting for PG&E to give us the final permit to operate. So we're still waiting for that to be able to be fully operational.
And then can we charge them off the grid and then return them at night?
Yes, the programs and end phase allow you to do all kinds of different kinds of things. Charge them from the grid, charge them from the panels. Obviously, we've been charging them fully from the panels, and they charge within 3 to 4 hours in the morning in a nice day. Take maybe 2 to 3 hours more in a cloudy day. We can put then the batteries to generate the electricity for the house during the time that the electricity is the most expensive from PG&E. But as I said, during the summer, we were generating more than we were consuming.
There were some questions, but
Okay. Do you know the cost of the end phase part of the purchase?
Yeah, end-phase batteries were very, very expensive because they are this chemistry that's a little bit more stable called lithium iron phosphate. But they just brought down the price of the batteries. And actually, they not only did that, but now they came up with a shallower battery. As you could see, the ones we have are about 30 to 40% fatter than the Tesla batteries. Now they came with a thinner battery that's more attractive, and the costs have come down. They're still a little bit more expensive than these Tesla batteries, but they have a lot of advantages in terms of stability of filling them up. I could tell you all of the things that we've been reading about these batteries, and you can actually see them. They're in the internet, all the comparisons side by side with other batteries.
Good. Tom?
Where do I see my questions?
So they're on my screen, they're on the right-hand side under chat. And they're the questions for all the panelists, and ask, can you speak to costs and how long the batteries last, how many days? Do they still work when there's no solar input? Can you get them charged from PG&E and use them when rates are lower? What vendors did you use or installers did you use?
Yeah, the vendor was Sunlight and Power out of Berkeley. So this was 2004. So it's a simple system. Mine is only has the ability for 110. In those days, inverters were hugely expensive, and that was going to give me enough to run the part of the house I wanted, you know, when there was an outage, and it has, and it's worked very well. But it's old enough now that I'm looking to go on and redesign it and redo it in 240, and I want to have something like Arturo or Hank has. Anyway, so can it charge? It would, the batteries would charge just straight, you know, when the power comes back on, they'll just recharge anything that the generator hasn't taken care of. Mine does have generator backup. There is a program in the inverter that tells it when the voltage is low enough on the batteries that it turns on the generator automatically. And the length of the batteries is about 40 hours. It really depends on your usage. So we have refrigerators like you do. We have lights for just a part of the house. Cordless phones got to be one of the key things besides computers. And then you found out, like somebody said, that Comcast, their system didn't have a generator. So we're out of luck. What were the other questions? The cost. was about 25,000, but it's a much smaller system. I have 16 PV panels, but they're 125 watts each. The whole system puts out about 7,800 K, or 77.8 K. And I have the tree problem like everybody has. I'm looking for a good tree guy right now to trim trees that used to be shorter and now they're shading my panels. In the old fashioned panels, as you know, if shade even touched the corner of some of them, the whole panel quit working. So mine are of that class. The newer ones are much better. So I think that's everything. Yeah.
Okay. Hank?
Sure. As I said before, we designed our system to be able to run pretty much the entire house for 4 days without any recharge at all. I was assuming that the solar was out due to storms. After 4 days, or as it approaches 4 days, we would assume we would be doing major load shedding and could cut the energy use by 70% without too much of an issue. And hopefully that there'd be some trickle charge coming back in and that it wouldn't be totally cloudy all day so that we could pretty much go on indefinitely. The system is programmed so that the batteries always get topped off by solar first and foremost. And if solar is not available to top off the batteries, then it'll revert to PG&E. The batteries are only used if there's no solar and there's no PG&E. And they're not used at nighttime because the lead acid has a certain amount of cycles to use. And if we continue to use that at nighttime, we would use the battery life would be used up relatively quick. And so that's one of the big difference between that lithium in addition to the cost. So, 4 days without any load shedding and then definitely with load shedding and some trickle charge in the wintertime from the batteries.
And the vendors and installers you
Sure.
used?
Yeah, so as I said, we used American Solar as the installer. The batteries are made by DEKA, D-E-K-A, and then the solar panels are sun powered solar panels. So we have 45 panels, and they do about almost 350 watts for each panel. There's one question also, do batteries need any special care, such as battery cabinet or in the garage? They don't. So they've got a plexiglass case to making sure that there's no metal, bouncing off them or anything, but they don't get hot. There's no temperature control. There's no special maintenance for them at all. They're pretty self-sufficient, and American Solar did a pretty cool install, so they actually look kind of nice.
Okay, there are several suggestions from some of our viewers to make sure. In the chat section, Barbara Haydorn talked about a website called Energy Sage. And she says the Department of Energy helped you to actually submit bids and to get quotes from multiple vendors on a comparable basis. And in the Q&A section, Alan Schroeder talked about PG&E having a special rate for electric vehicle owners. So they get charged between 9 and 3 a.m. And this happens whether or not you have a solar system, just using the electricity. And also a comment about the inverters, but I'm not sure I can understand what he's saying here. Direct access for them to charge. Do we have any other individuals who would like to speak rather than
Joanne,
write their question?
I can address that question. So
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Go
Joanne?
ahead.
Yeah. So
Yes. Yes.
yeah, this is one concern about the control of the current coming from the panels to the batteries. And they have to be matched so that the batteries, you know, are matched with the number of panels that there are there. But technology is actually advancing very quickly, and there's a new generation of microinverters that now can adjust the output of each panel depending on the charge of the batteries and on the required current that needs to be put out. So I think this is still a real problem with some microinverters. And when you have a single microinverter, it's a potential point of failure. So that was another consideration on putting microinverters, that if one goes bad, then the rest of the panel is still working. And with these new ones, actually, you can turn up or down the amount of current each panel is putting.
Okay, thank you for that.
There's also some questions that have been answered.
Ben,
If folks
Go
want to look at the answer part of the
Amber.
Q&A, there's Ben was answering a question about debris from trees, and he said that he gets up on the roof and blows his panels off maybe once a year, and he had a professional cleaning after the smoke ash for $200. And then, yeah, no temperature. Hank answered that one too. Okay, so I think that's all of the questions I see. Oh, there was a question about whether there's degradation of the panels due to age.
okay, do any of our panelists want to talk about having to replace panels for whatever reason?
So we
Tom,
have had them,
Arturo, or Hank?
we had them only for a very short period of times, but we've been told that the panels are very, very reliable and that it would last for 20 years or longer. But there's a little bit of degradation with age, so the production would come down. But maybe Tom, that has had them for a long time, knows exactly how fast they degrade.
No, I don't know. Actually, my meter broke a couple of years ago and I haven't replaced it because I'm really going to look for a whole new system. So I can't really tell you, but I've read that too. So well, I've got this. Do I understand that you're all completely off grid?
No, we're not off grid. We're still connected to PG&E, and we're using at night PG&E coming in, not
Okay.
when the batteries are run down.
Okay.
Hank, did you want to comment on degradation of panels, or are yours too new to know the answer to that?
Yeah, we haven't noticed any, but it's relatively new, so it's not enough time.
Did anyone want to respond to, there's a question in the chat that just came up.
Okay.
About whether it seems like things have improved enough over the past 10 years that solar will work in spite of the trees, because I mean everybody's got trees, but a lot of us have been previously told that there was no chance.
Yeah, so yeah, I think we have experience with that, and you can actually see life in our panels, the ones that are shaded from trees, and how the current goes down on them. but the production still is maintained on those that are not shaded. Related to the question before about cleaning, we haven't cleaned them, the panels, and I was surprised of how well they work, even though they're very dirty, because we had that period when we had a lot of pollen coming down from the trees. So they were covered. I don't know if after these couple of rains they've been washed out, but they were covered by a thin layer of pollen that I thought was going to really make them not work efficiently. But even with the pollen in there, they were able to produce twice as much as we were consuming.
Do you want to answer these? What is the estimate on how long the payback period might be?
I don't know how to calculate that.
No, we haven't calculated that, but we after last summer and with all the power shutoffs, it started not even to matter. Like the thought of having to go through another summer like that, where the power would just be off for 3 days, off for 3 days, off for 3 days. We were really thinking that way. We were thinking about avoiding that.
And so it's a similar one as far as payback. For ours, for just the PV system, the payback is about 15 years. But similar to what you've said, Jeanette and Arturo, I mean, there's two main things to be putting in solar. One, it's absolutely the right thing to do from our perspective to be using less energy in general, and so it's the responsible thing if you can afford it. Payback's about 15 years on the solar. But the batteries, I mean, there's not a payback on the batteries. That's essentially emergency backup system. So that pays for your power when PG&E doesn't provide it.
There's a question about Tesla batteries. Is there any benefit to having more than one Tesla battery? I think Ben is the one who has Tesla batteries, Jonathan. So maybe for follow-up questions to this evening, maybe just send a general question to Kings Mountain community at groups.io maybe you'll get the answer not only from Ben, but other people who have Tesla batteries. And then Alan Schroeder says that solar panels now are guaranteed to provide at least 80% of their rated power for year 35. So that's a lot different than things used to be. So that's good news.
I noticed before Alan had a raised hand and it's down. So Alan, if you did want to come on screen and share something, we can make that happen. But thank you for all your input.
Here's also a great question from Chris. It's in the Q&A. I'll just read it if anyone wants to take it. Assuming your batteries are fully charged, do your panels generate enough surplus energy to sell some of it back to PG&E? Is PG&E required to buy it? And if so, at what price? And is that paid to you outright, or does it come in the form of a credit in case you have to draw from the grid?
I'm guessing that Ben has the answer to that in terms of having a new system, and he has a contract with PG&E. So I don't know if any of the other panelists can answer that question.
Yeah, I can answer part of it. So yes, we do generate in excess, especially in the summertime. We generate far in excess of what we need, and PG&E is required to buy it. So far, it's just been a credit. I don't know if they would actually refund money or not. And I think they buy it back at the lowest price power that they provide to you. So it's, even though you're generating power at close to peak hours, I don't believe they're providing the peak hour pricing as back to a refund. And then someone said net energy metering selling back to PG&E is a bit of a zoo. We found that out also. So when we brought our system online, we switched to PG&E because it was a rat's nest to get that sorted out. And it seemed a lot simpler and a lot better payoff with PG&E. And we didn't want to go through the hassle. So ours is through PG&E.
So we cannot answer that question yet because we haven't gotten the final permit to operate from PG&E, but we're giving them for free a lot of energy as of now. So maybe that's their lane and giving us the permit.
Okay, well, I think it's getting close to 8 o'clock, and I want to again reiterate to follow up on any questions that you have. Just send them out to the community, and we'll ask the panelists to stay tuned and address your questions. And if there's more interest, we can have version 2 of this and invite vendors and installers to talk about their current offerings. Let me send this back to either Marlene, our president, or to Amber, our tech person. I'm not sure who's there.
Thank you, Joan. I did, before I do a formal closing, want to just acknowledge Alan did come on. And Alan, if you want to come back on screen for a moment, I don't know if there's any other tidbits you'd like to share. I know you, this is a time for us to open it up if somebody in the community. So Alan.
Great, thank you. Hey, Joanne, thank you very much for spearheading this topic, and for all the panelists that provided great information. That was excellent perspectives from a number of different systems. I work in the solar industry as a wholesale distributor, so I have the luxury of working with Enphase and SolarEdge and selling Deca batteries among all the other parts. And it's great to hear the successes you all had. Shade is the enemy of solar. So let's just acknowledge that trees, as much as we all love them, aren't going to help our solar systems. A couple things just to pay attention to. Number one, there's something called net metering 2.0, which is what we all live by and get credits for with PG&E and the other utilities in the California state today. That's going to be changing over the next 6 months to a year. So pay attention to that, because the new net metering 3.0 will not give as much credit for excess power that you create. It's in negotiations right now, but the utilities essentially would like us all to go away and provide us with power for a price and not have our own solar systems. So that's a big thing to watch out for. Second, battery technology and solar technology isn't dramatically changing. So it's sort of evolving slowly, but there's not a lot of revolutionary things on the forefront for the next year or so. So as much as it's fantastic that we've jumped from 125 watt panels 10 years ago to 400 watt panels today, they're slowly getting a little bit more output today, but not much. They're really beginning to hit the highest performance that they can. And battery technology, there's nothing that we really see on the forefront. So from the manufacturers. But this has been a great presentation, and all of you, thank you very much for your real world input and experience. I love hearing this, and I know everybody else does too.
Well, thank you, Alan. You made the last part of my thank you easy because you just did the thank yous that now I will just reiterate. And for those that I haven't met, and those of you watching, my name's Marlene Sherstern, and I'm the current president of the Kings Mountain Association. And on behalf of KMA, I really do want to thank our neighbors, our panelists, for sharing your experiences and the knowledge that we've all gained from your pursuit of learning about solar panels and battery systems. Joan, thank you for organizing, and Amber for your facilitation of our, as we have belovedly been calling it, our solar panel. So we're much thanks there. And again, as Joan had indicated, if there is enough interest, KMA will gladly look into hosting a part 2 event with vendors. And up next, KMA on October 30th, again, there's the invasive plant live training, 10 a.m. weather permitting, meeting outside of the community center. Cleopatra from the San Mateo County Conservation District will be working with us. And October 31st, Halloween, which will be COVID compliant, 5 p.m., which is an hour earlier than we've had in years past. Check Groups IO. We very much would love the opportunity to safely see and interact with our neighbors. Anything else I missed, Amber, Joan, panelists? Thank you very, very much. And this has been recorded. So if you want to listen to it again, fast forward, or any of our neighbors that missed it will have the opportunity to hear from our esteemed panelists and neighbors. So thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.